Hey guys, this is Matt Kids101 with our 11th iPhone programming tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make graphics that you draw with CoreGraphics move around the screen. So I'm going to create a new project by going up to File, New Project in Xcode, create a new application, view-based application, and I'll call it CoreGraphics Animation. Alright. And so basically what we're going to do is the same thing we did in the previous tutorial. We're going to create a new view, make it a subclass of, and I actually have to go to Cocoa Touch class. I'll make it a subclass of UI view and call it draw view. And we'll go into the resources and make this our main view, like normal. So what this view is going to do, and I'll get to it in a second, but I'll explain it to you now. There's going to be normal CoreGraphics drawing, but it's going to be moving around pretty much live. So I just clicked here, set the class to draw view, etc. You can watch my previous video if you want to know how to do that. Anyway, let's go into draw view, and we're going to declare a few instance variables. We're going to declare a CG rect called previous ball point, or previous ball, or how about just ball? Why does it need to be previous? Sorry. And I'll make float, and I'll call it vel x for velocity x, and I'll create a vel y. And we could use a CG point for this, but I don't want to use a CG point as a vector. I don't know. Anyway, but basically, I create this, and I'm going to create a function called moveBall. Alright, so here's our initialization code right here. We can't actually write anything in our initialization code because this method might not get called. There are two initialization methods that get called, and if you declare your view through Interface Builder, then this will never actually get called, and it's quite sad. So we're going to make a separate function called void setUpView, and we'll set everything up in a second. Alright, there's another function that gets called when a UI view is initialized, and that's initWithCoder. We'll say if self equals super initWithCoder, a decoder. We'll return self, and here we're going to do call setUpView, self setUpView, and we'll do the same thing in our initWithFrame just in case. So what you just saw there is me setting up our initialization code. So now when this view gets loaded, it'll call setUpView. And here's where we're going to set the initial point of our ball, we're going to set the initial velocity of the ball, and we're going to set up a timer, and I'll display that explain that in a second. So say ball equals CGRect make, and I'll start out at 10, 10, 100, 100. So it's going to be 10 by 10, it's going to be at 10 and 10, the point 10, 10, it's going to have a width of 100, height of 100. Alright, I'll make vel x, I'll make it move by 2, and vel y by 2. And when we set the frame rate that this will go at, it basically means that it'll move 2 pixels per frame. Alright, so that's pretty much what we're going to do. Now, in order to make, we're going to have code, we're going to have moveBall specifically get called every 30th of a second or something like that. So that way we can animate and redraw, which will basically move the ball slightly. If the velocity needs to get changed, then change that, and then set redraw. In our redrawing function, in our drawRect, we're going to draw a ball, like normal. So we'll declare CG context ref context equals UI graphics get current context, and we'll say CG context set fill color context, or how about set fill color with color, and I'll give it UI color, yellow color, CG color. Alright. So now we can say CG context fill rect, or how about fill ellipse in rect context, and we'll give it our ball's rectangle. Alright, so basically when this gets called, it'll draw an ellipse, a yellow ellipse, in the designated frame. So all we need to do now is make moveBall move the ball slightly, and make it get called. So in our setup view, we set up the velocity in the ball frame. We're also going to set up a timer. So we're going to say NSTimer, scheduled timer, with time interval and I'll give it 1.0f over 30.0f. That basically means 1/30th of a second is our time interval, so it'll go 30 times a second. Target will be self, selector, at selector, and we'll give it our move ball selector. User info will be nil, and repeats will be yes, because we want it to go over. So I'm going to go over what this does real quickly. Scheduled timer with time interval. The first parameter is the basically not how many times a second it should go, but how many seconds it will take for each tick. So in 1/30th of a second, it'll tick 1 over 30 right there. So basically that's our interval. If you gave it 30, then it would go every 30 seconds. That would be kind of slow. Anyway, the target's going to be self. That means it's calling this selector on self. At selector just means I want to create a selector, and a selector is kind of complicated. I can't explain it in this video, but basically, this is how you tell it, I want you to call the function move ball. User info is something you get as a parameter if you want, but you can't. We're not doing that. And repeats, we'll set that to yes because we want it to repeat. This function actually returns an NS timer object, but we're not going to be dealing with that. We're not going to be stopping it or anything. And we'll be doing that in our next tutorial, actually, so I don't want to spoil that. But, yeah, so we've got this set up. We've got our velocity. So now in move ball, we're going to, at the end of it, we'll say set needs display. And that means I want to redraw. And I'll explain that in a second. But here we'll say ball.origin.x plus equals vel x. And ball.origin.y plus equals vel y. And then I'll move it by velocity. So it'll move it in, with the slope. It'll move it down 2 and across 2. So it'll be -1 will be the slope that the ball is moving at. Now, when we say self set needs display, that just means I want you to call CG rect, draw rect, CG rect again. And so this will get called again sometime in the near future after we call this. Normally on the next instance of the run loop, right? So we're adding to the velocity. Now here's the thing, the ball is going to move off of our screen, and I want you to see that before I go on. So I'll run this, make sure it runs with the iPhone simulator, and we'll see. Alright, so for some reason it's the iPhone 4 simulator, but as you can see there's a ball, and it just went off our screen, and we can no longer see it. It's still moving. So what we're going to do is change around our velocity as the thing moves around. So basically we're going to show if it goes over the side, then reverse the velocity of the side it went over. So we're going to say if ball.origin.x less than 0, then we'll say vel x times equals -1. And we'll also say ball.origin.x equals 0, just to make it so it never actually goes off the screen. And we'll say else if ball.origin.x greater than self.frame.size.width minus ball.size.width. And we'll say vel x times equals -1, ball.origin.x equals self.frame.size.width minus ball.size.width. If you guys can look and see what this means, we're basically we want to set the ball so it's just touching, the right of it is touching the right side of our view. And the right side of our view is this on the x-axis. We're subtracting the width of the ball from that to get the x that we want the ball to have. So I hope you can see the way that works. If not, maybe you can draw it out, and it'll probably help a little bit. So that'll make it bounce on our x-axis. So if we take a look, we run it, it'll go, and let's see, it bounces off the right, but it's still going to go down across the bottom. So we need also to do the y-axis for this. So we can do basically the same thing and replace width with height and y, or x with y. So I'll do that right now. Alright. And I think you should, I won't cut this because I want you to see the process that I'm going through. It's pretty straightforward. Alright, and we run this. And now you should see a ball. Let's see. I don't want to talk too soon. Maybe it doesn't work at all. Yeah, it works. So you should now the ball will bounce across all the axes on all the edges, and it will just reverse the velocity. So that's basic animation using a timer. To make it go faster, I'll change my velocity from 2 to 4. That'll make it go twice as fast, as you may have guessed. And let's see how well it works. It's going pretty fast. So now you kind of can understand. I hope you can see how animation works. Now, this is a lot of code. I don't expect you to necessarily want to copy it all down from the video. If you want to, that's fine. But in the description, you'll have a link to download the code for this. So go ahead and click on that. And anyway, thanks for watching MacHeads 101. Subscribe, and goodbye.